Okay, well, you say you're recording, so I will trust that you know what you're doing. Okay, so here we go. We're going to go ahead and get started here. So, CSS selectors. Why do we care and what are they? So, long story short, CSS selectors are mainly what the community uses, what CSS uses in order to do styling. So, for instance, if I was to look at the DOM, if I went to LDS.org and I went to do F12, and I wanted to change the color of these blue things, right? These teaser labels. I can select a teaser label. And if I go to look a little bit further here, you can see the styles. And you can see here's a .teaser label. So that .teaser label is what we call a CSS selector. It's what tells it basically says, hey, I want to apply these styling attributes to anything with a class of label. And so in here I could actually say I want this to be red, and instantly I can change all the messages to red. I could also say I don't want white, I want light red. And I'll say there is no such thing as a lighter red. So then I'll say, well, give me purple then. And then I can get a pretty horrible looking site in just a matter of a few minutes. So CSS labels basically do that. So I can actually say, instead of applying this to all labels, I can actually say I want it to apply it to all div tags. And now you can see I've completely ruined the site because I've applied this styling to every single div tag on the site. I could also say, well, I don't want to apply it to all the div tags, I just want to apply it to the span tags. So now it's applied it to all the span tags, which obviously you can now see that it's completely gone there. And so that styling is, so the CSS selectors is how it figures out which element on the page it wants to deal with. So there's a few common ones and uncommon ones that you will need to know as we're doing automation. Because what happens is our automation will use CSS selectors in order to determine which elements it's interacting with. So for instance, I'll give you an example here so you kind of get context. So if I wanted to click on the search bar, I can go spy on the search bar, and there's a few things I can do here. I can do a if it was the only input, I can say input as a CSS selector. If I wanted to get it from, from its type equal text, I could say, well, I want to input where brackets type equals text. If that wasn't detailed enough, it looks like there is an ID there. CSS has two common short keys. One is hashtag for ID. So this says I want to go ahead and just, I want to go get the style for hashtag PF global search, and that'll give me any element with the ID of global search. This is the same if I was to spell it out, it would be the same as doing this. Just a shorthand for doing it because it's such a common use case. The other common use case is class. Let's see here, does this one even have a class? It does. This guy has a class. There is a short key for class, which is period. You've seen that a lot. Which is not, and this is the only difference here, that is not the same, but it's similar to this. And I will explain the differences between those two in a minute. But first for context. So if I did this, how many of you think that would work in my automation? What's your confidence level? On a 0, your confidence is low, right? So we'll give that a 0. That's not a very good thing to do. What's your confidence level that the second one's going to work? Give it a 1, maybe a little bit higher than a 0, but not quite, whatever our highest number is going to be. What about this next one? So the next one's maybe a solid 10. That one's more than likely going to work. What about this next one? So lower than a 10, but higher than the 1? So maybe an 8? So let's try them out real quick, shall we? So a way to try them out is if you select a DOM and you hit Control F, you'll notice that this bar down here, which is a search, has showed up in the DOM tooling there for Chrome. And so this takes XPath, CSS selectors, and just strings. So if I did input, you see this 1 of 4? That means that there's actually 4 inputs on this page. And so in my automation could really pick up any one of those. So that's not very good. Let's try the second one. Let's do the ones where the type equals text. That one, surprisingly enough, on this page would have worked, because you can see here, there's a 1 of 1. Now, stability, on the other hand, would it have been a stable test? Would I be able to use it? Yes. Would it be able to be used 10 years from now? Probably not. If they were to add another input page with a type of text in that on your on the browser, you'd completely be your test would completely fail after that. It might, but it does introduce a level of uncertainty, which is why we give it a 1 probably. Anybody who's an expert at this knows that. Second one, of course, also returned 1. IDs, even programmers will observe this as best as they can. An ID, if there is a tag in the HTML that has an ID attribute, programmers always try to make that unique, meaning that no other element on the page should have that duplicate ID attribute. So ID is always going to be your best bet when doing this. The second one that is kind of common to use is class. Sometimes classes can be pretty unique, because sometimes classes are really for a unique area. So for this class, it actually says PF search form field. Take out the similar, that actually didn't match anything. There we go. This, if I actually look at that naming, I'm like, okay, so they're probably going to use this class only whenever they're doing a search field. So I could probably give that to my element, and the chances of that class being applied to any other element is probably going to be pretty small, unless that element happens to also be doing a search. And can anyone think of an example on LDS.org where you might have 2 searches? Media library? Scriptures actually has it too. So if I go to Scriptures, let's see if they gave it a different styling here. Or Scriptures used to have it. To go into a page? Do I have to expand? Because the mobile version doesn't have it? I have to expand. Okay. So there you go. You have search for the church sites and search Scriptures. Let's see if this still holds true now that I've navigated. Huh. That doesn't seem plausible. Let's try it again. How does that not work? Is that really lost its styling? Oh, that's why. So you notice now, if I go over here and search, nope, that'll still be bad. So as you can see there, I've merely navigated to a different page, and now my search comes up empty there. What does this guy look like? This guy has a similar class. Let's see what he has. he has search form and search field. So if I dot search field, what does that give me? So that gives me 1. And this guy, however, is completely different. See, he was called that, and that should work. Did the underscore change? Or did I accidentally remove it? So he works now. Let me just navigate to a different page for sanity reasons. Is he still there now that I'm responsive? He's gone now that I'm responsive. Yeah. Good to know. I did not know that bug in developer tools. Now we know it, we can report it, and now have a better life, knowing that the world is a little bit safer. So yeah, so if you navigate, you have to put your search back in. Good to know. Okay, so let's try it in our automation real quick. So if in our simple automation that we have, everyone has something very similar. All that we're going to do here is we're going to switch out the www.google.com for lds.org. Okay, instead of entering in the name Q, we're going to do by Css Selectors. And inside, that's going to take a string. We're going to go ahead and put in our good guy here. Let's do the ID. Okay, and yeah, let's just keep searching for cheese. I like that. That'll be our underlying theme for everything we test.
Can you put my ID in there as a CSS selector?
You can, but since this is a CSS selector class, you want to do CSS selector. See if it works. I go to lds.org. Send cheese. Yes! Success. And there, we've used our first CSS selector. Okay, so why do we use CSS selectors? There is an argument here for doing that. So if you look here, let's look here real quick. If I was to look at this, let's look at the different types we have. And I'll just give you a quick summary. We'll have a more detailed class probably in 3 weeks about the different selectors, but I'll just give you a quick summary. Class name, ID, yeah, you can use either one of those. CSS selector, if you wanted to standardize your framework to use one selector, meaning that you just wanted to say, you know, all my selectors are going to be CSS, then yeah, you can do what I did here, which is just put a hashtag in front of it, or put a dot in front of whatever the name is, and it'll act the same. Link text, that one is something where CSS selecting isn't going to give you. There are some pitfalls for CSS selecting. I'll explain that in a minute. Name, name attribute on an item. Same thing with CSS. It's a little bit longer. You just do the brackets, name equals, but same thing can be accomplished. Partial link text, CSS can't do. Tag name is pretty much identically the same, really. You put in a tag name there, you put in a tag name there. I actually wouldn't be surprised if some of these items like tag name, class name, and ID are underlying really just using a CSS selector. XPath. XPath is a more complex query language. As such, because it is more complex, it also has more features and functionality than CSS selectors do. And I'll have an entire class or two on XPath, probably just one class, but we'll go from there. So generally speaking, majority of the people that I know who automate probably the most, a lot of them typically like CSS selectors just because of the shortness of being able to identify your element in the least amount of characters. It's pretty easy. In terms of speed, It differs from every time we do the presentation. We'll do it again this time here, but we'll actually use one of each and we'll see which one comes out faster. Speed-wise, CSS selectors usually come out just slightly faster than anything else. So, okay. So understanding the purpose of why we need to learn CSS selectors and what they can do, let's look at some of the advanced things they can do. Okay? So if we look at, let's go back to our home page real quick. So you guys using your computers and your laptops, if I wanted to click on the church launches how-to channel on YouTube, what would you suggest that I used for my CSS selection? If you look at that. Looks like I can click on the picture. I can also click on the link. They might be the same. Here is the HTML here. So you got title text. So title text would bring us to this node here. So I could try that. Let's see here. Well, CSS doesn't support title text, so I can't use that. So in CSS, what would I have to use? This was a hard one, huh? There's this image. That seems to be unique enough. I can say when I click on the image, that might work. Here's a link. I might be able to click on the link. If I was to click on the link, I would either have to supply the exact link. So what would that look like? So I'd say I'm looking for a link where the href equals. On the other side of the equal sign, let me show you this real quick. So like for instance, if I did a class, for instance, equals pf header, it doesn't work. If I did role equals banner though, that's supposed to work. Oh, it's an A. There we go. Role equals banner, great. So you see I can do role equals banner and it works just fine. With CSS selectors, if it's a one word and there's no underscores or special characters in it, you can literally just use that one word. However, if there is multiple words or underscores, let's actually try that other one with pf header. Class equals pf header. That one worked as well. But if there is a space or a special character and you're not getting it, all that you do is you add single quotes around it. And that'll basically say that this is the exact text I'm looking for. So going back to our initial problem with the URL, so let's take a look at that. So there's a, I didn't want to click on it. I wanted to just look at it. Okay, so we got an href equals, and then what I'm going to do is single quotes, and then I'm going to copy the link for this, which is right here. Copy that, paste it in here, and now I found it. Now, that's a really long link, right? And it has all these special characters. I'm wondering if even if I uploaded a new video with the same name, if I'm really going to be able to leverage that. If I wanted this to be a little bit more stable, I could do something, I could use a like statement, which is you just add an asterisk. An asterisk equals, for instance, I can say I'm looking for something with a asterisk equals, and this title looks pretty good. So I'm just going to strip out everything except for the title of the video. And now I got that huge long CSS selector, and now I'm able to do that. So let's see if it works. So first thing, whenever you're using selectors, unless you're planning on getting a collection back, is you always want to check the number. I got one of one, so there's only one of these links on the page. So now if I come back here, I should be able to do that, and click. With a capital C on this one. For JavaScript, you're going to start all your methods with lowercase. And click doesn't take anything inside of it, so because I'm clicking, it doesn't have a parameter. So there we go, click. So now, if I go to run this again, it should take me to see how the church launches how-to channel on YouTube. Wonder what type of things they're teaching us to do. Is it like a how to pray, or is it more like a how to help somebody move? Did it even work? Or did I quit too quickly before I could find out? Let's try this again. I'll debug it so I can stop it in time. Hey, it worked. Great. Okay. So now we're going to play a few rounds of let's get to know our CSS selector. So when learning CSS selectors, someone did actually develop a game for this. It's called CSS Diner. And I'm going to go back to level 1 here. Okay. So based on the short introduction I've given you, if I wanted to select all the plates on this table, you can see here, you have your HTML viewer on the right. On the left, it's asking you to type in a CSS selector. So if I wanted to select all the plates, what would I type in? All tag names, you just type in a tag name. So I can just type in a plate here and hit enter. There we go. Now I'm on to the next one. I want to select just the bento boxes. Looking at these HTML here, you can see I have a table, a bento, a plate, and a bento. So if I just want the bento boxes, what would I type for my CSS selector? Bento. Good. Because that's the tag name. Okay, now if I wanted the plate that was fancy, what do you think? Yep, so there's a few ways to do this. I can do plate where ID equals fancy. Let's see if it'll even accept it. It did. There's another way to do that. What's the shorthand to do that? I can just do hashtag fancy, and that will do the same thing as well. Okay? How do I get the apple that's on the plate? Let's try it. Plate space apple. So let me explain this one. So when you want to get a child node, so you type in the name of the parent node, and then the space says I want any child node that matches this tag name as well. So in this one, plate is the parent node, right? You can see there's an apple here and there's an apple here. I don't want this apple. I want the one that's on the plate. So I would do plate, and then I would do apple. There's actually two ways to do this, because I can say I want plate and the immediate child, in which case I would use the greater than sign. Or I can do plate space apple, which says I want any apple that's a grandchild. It could be my great-great-great-great-great-grandchild, and I still want it. That's who I'm selecting. So if I do that and hit enter, we're done there. Okay, the pickle on the fancy plate. How would I do that? What?
Hashtag fancy and then a greater than sign.
Yeah, that should work. That says that I want the hat. This is saying fancy should grab this node here because it has the ID of fancy. And then the pickle is saying, hey, I want the pickle that's on that's the child of that plate. So if I hit enter there, we got it. How do I get the small apples? So these are classes. If you notice that, they kind of swapped out the classes instead of IDs. And so for classes, it would be dot small. Or if you want to do it longhand, I don't know anyone would, but that would also be the same as saying, I want an apple where class equals small. It would do the same thing. Of course, it does not like my definition of how to do that. So we will go with dot small. Maybe it wanted me to do it with dot apple. What? You don't like that at all? I can try quotes. Maybe they just sent program it because technically they're just looking for this. Even they're protecting themselves. Like, why would anyone want to do it that way? Small. Okay, 2 small oranges. This should be pretty easy. Orange dot small. Very good. Now, if there's no space between selectors, it automatically assumes that whatever the second selector is on the same line as the first one. So in this example, orange is the name of the tag, right? If we look here at this, we have orange. It has a class of small. And so when I did dots, I'm basically saying tag, okay, so this is the tag. I want the orange tag, and I want the class of small. So I combine multiple selectors together without a space to say that this has to match all these things. So for example, let's do another one on the LDS shirt because there's a lot of fun here. So if I was looking back at this input box, right? And if I really wanted to get fancy, I can say I'm looking for an input where type equals text, and it has to have a ID of PF global search. Apparently didn't like that one. I didn't like that one. Oh. This is underscore global. Ah, yeah, there is. Hey, very good. And I could say, and he also has to have the class of PF search underscore field. So you can kind of change these together if you really wanted to create a specific thing. Best practices. You have a good development with your dev team, or you feel confident in developing yourself. Get your dev team to add IDs to the elements where you need this the most. The longer your CSS selection gets, the more fragile your tests are going to be. So you're going to want to avoid those. Okay, let's go back to the diner. So this one would be orange.small. Excellent. I want the 2 small oranges that are on bento boxes. So into, so you do space in this one or not, and then not small. Let me give me 2 small oranges on the bento boxes. Great. Okay, here we go. We want, let's see here. I want to get pickles on plates and pickles on bento boxes. Actually, I'm not even selecting pickles. Maybe I'm just selecting the plates in a bento. So with CSS selectors, I can actually say I want an or. Now you're not going to use this particular example too much in your automation unless you're doing, unless you're getting back collections of items. For the most part, you're not going to use this, but it's good to know for, as you're, having fun with CSS. Whenever you want a CSS to apply to multiple elements, you just comma separate it. And whenever you want your demos to work, you got to make sure to lowercase as well. Actually, I never really thought that CSS selection was case sensitive. I did do it, right, didn't I? Oh, there we go. Now, just to see if it is case sensitive. I don't think it is. Let's see. It's not case sensitive. There we go. Okay, so here we go. I want, wow. Is that everything? That is everything. A star is basically a wildcard saying I want everything. So I put a star, I get everything. Again, not one you're going to use the whole in automation. This one, I want to get all the items that are on a plate. I want to get all the children. I think I can do plate, and then immediately children, and anything underneath those. That would give me everything that's on a plate. Okay? So I got a small apple and a big apple. But I want to get it in the order. And these are starting to get a lot more complex here.
Would it be like a similar?
So this one's actually using, and you can kind of, this actually gives you a little bit of a cheat here. This is using adjacent sibling selector. So this says that I want, I want to be able to have I want to be able to select an apple that is by a plate. And so what I would do is I would do plate plus apple. And that would give me anything that is, what I want to do the first and second, I think it's plate plus apple. Now give me anything to the right, the next sibling to the plate. And so there you go. Pickles. What do we do with all these pickles? So this one's saying, this is a general sibling selector. Now let me skip these ones here and let's go to some that make sure that you're going to get some for automation. This one's a good one. Child selector, we kind of went through that. You do the greater than sign to get the immediate one. So if I wanted a plate apple, I can do that. This is, for instance, if I don't want this one, because this one's a grandchild. This is on a bento plate, that's on a plate. This one's directly on a plate, I just want that one. I use the greater than sign. This one's an important one. I want to get the very, very first orange that's on top there. I don't want the other two oranges, I don't want the plate, I just want that. And so what I can do here is there is a command called first child. And this one I do use quite a bit in automation. For instance, on grids, right? If I have multiple items and I just want to get the first, I just really want to click on the first item in the grid because my test doesn't really care on the item. I'm going to go ahead and do first child because that's going to give me the very first link on the page, the very first item on the page. Let me go back to that one. The important thing to know on first child is it will give you the first child of anything underneath it. So for example, I'll just do this here. So if I had a plate, you know what? This is going to take forever in this. I'm going to do it in VS Code. I don't want that one. I just want file new. Okay, I'm going to switch this to HTML. So I get my analysis. So if I was doing a plate, and let's see if I want a plate times 2 with a child of orange. Okay. So in this example, if I had to use the CSS selector of plate, orange, or if I did orange first child, that is going to select this guy and this guy. Because what it's looking for is it's looking for the relationship. It's saying, hey, if that tag is the first item underneath a plate or underneath any kind of parent, this could even be a different parent. This could be a bento. And that first is going to get me both of those. So you want to watch out for that. You want to make sure that you're more specific in saying what the parent is that you're looking for, so that way you're not actually selecting an item in a different area that you didn't unexpectedly check. And again, it's always good to use your CSS selector, in Chrome to be able to check to make sure you're not selecting multiple items. First child. Okay. Only child, very similar. Basically saying, hey, we're going to select something that doesn't have any kind of children, that doesn't have any siblings at all. This one you're probably not going to use at all. So just go through that one. Oh, that's an only child too. I only want the only child on plates. So I'm going to do plate this. And then, what am I doing? Not plural. Thank you very much. All right, fine, I'll add the space. Here we go. Here we go. Pseudo selector, last child. Similar to first child, but all you're doing is selecting the last. So in this one, what would it be? This is combining multiple selectors. This is a fun one. Pickle. What does the pickle and the apple have in common?
Small.
They're both small. So this one's actually small. I'm looking for someone with a class of small, and I want it to be the last child. Since this other small orange here is first, it will not work. It won't select the orange. So there we go. This one I use quite a bit too. It's called nth of child, which says that if I'm looking for a specific position of something, so if I wanted to get the third row, or if I wanted to get the fifth row, and I had my test, I knew what row something was going to be on, and I knew that I wanted to get that one. This is another one that's pretty helpful. So if I wanted to get in this example, I want to be able to get the third plate, what would I type? I believe it's 1 based. So in child, inside the parentheses, or not parentheses, parentheses, yes. You put in the 3 and voila, 6 the third one. Same thing here, no, what's this one? Nth last child selector. This one I've never ever used. I didn't even know it existed. Nth last child selects the children from the bottom of the parent. This is like the nth child but counting from the back. Oh. So if I wanted to be able to say so if I'm counting backwards basically. So in this one, what's on the right is going to be 1 and what's on the left. So if I wanted to get the second bento box from the last child, what would I use? Would be 3? Is it the bento, right? Hopefully Didn't like that. Enter int last child. 3's not gonna work. What is 3? What? Why would it be 3?
Is it counting the plate too?
Oh, because it is a child. This is an important one. Because even though it's the second bento, it's still the third child. So all that I did by adding bento here was saying that I had to make sure I wanted a bento box. So the third child was a plate, it wouldn't have selected. Does that make sense?
So could you just do remove bento?
I could, so I could just do star. And I could do int last child and 3. However,
How do you know it's
that would also select this orange here, right? I don't want the orange. So I got to be able to get this orange and not this. So in order to do that, I would have to say it had to be a direct descendant of table. So I could do that as well. I should be able to do that as well. I could try, well, space will give me anything. So still select the third orange. So that one wouldn't work. Star should give me any last child. Table, that should have worked. Table, direct child, but it has to be the last child. We can try space. I don't think it'll work though. Yeah. So this one, it looks like they did want you to put in bento. It's interesting now. Okay. First of type. This one I don't use. Do I use this one as much? Selects first element of a specific type. Actually, I think I do use this one quite a bit. So if I did apple, so if I wanted to select the first apple ever displayed in this group, right? What would I do? So I would do apple first of type, and that should give me the first apple. So let's look at that real quickly as well here. So let's find something that has a grid. So this has a series. This is a kind of a grid, actually. Let's see if it works. Okay. So there's a bunch of figures here. Let's see how many figures we have. Okay, so I have 19 figures, right? So if I wanted first of type, let me spell it. It's int of type A. First of type. Oh, there we go. First of type. Automatically selected this first one here, right? So I can also say I want int of type. And I can say I want the second one. And that gives me none. Yes, because it's not a child, which is probably what we'll see here in our example. So let's go back to our example here. So in our CSS Diner, so we'll go ahead and do this one again, which was we wanted the first apple. Okay, int of type. So this one, I want to be able to get the second, third, and fifth plates. Ah, this is kind of cool. I didn't even know this one existed either. So if I wanted to get all the odd ones, I could get all the odd ones. So in this one, what would I type? Plate. Even. Because even would be correct. This one gets really complicated. Well, int the type an plus b. So I want 2 plates with 2 apples on it. And it looks like the small apple is here, And we got a big apple here without a class. Okay. Who can figure out that one?
+2.
So we would be looking for, you say 3n? No. Good job.
Why is it 2n, not 2n? Isn't it? Or is it going from 3?
So 1, 2. So if we go back to that, so we were setting plate with nth of type, right? And we're saying 2n plus 3. Or plus 3. Yeah, that is starting from the second instance. Wait, so this one example, so 2n plus 2 says it selects every 6th instance of the span, starting from and including this second instance. Yeah. Probably won't use that one a whole lot, actually. Only of type selector. So this basically is selecting anything if it's the only item of that type. So what would be the difference between only, this is a good question for class. What is the difference between only of type and only child? Children can be of different types, yeah? And so if I say only of type, and I say, so in this case, I want to get the apple. So if I did small apple, and I want to be able to say only of type. I also think possibly, wouldn't only of type also be regardless of child, I believe, as well. So it could be a grandchild, whereas child might have to be a direct child. Let's see if that works. Yay, we're almost done here. Actually, we're done. It's 29 minutes. We'll do one more. Okay, so I want the small orange and small apple. Let's try it. There you go. Everyone understand why that is? So small, right? But the smallest type of orange is right here. So the type is referring to the tag itself. So if I did last of type, it's saying, well, that's the last type for orange, and that's the last type for apple. And so we're going to select these two here. Empty. I'll skip that one. Basically saying there's something there. Not X. This one's another important one that I've used every now and then. Basically saying, hey, I want to get an apple that's not this. So for example, in this one, I want to be able to select the two apples. It seems like a poor example. Can't I just put apple? Oh, we'll get the small apple. Oh, okay.
So if you do apple, not small.
Yeah, so basically I can do that. Now give me both apples where it doesn't have this attribute. This one I do use, I used to use a lot in automation because oftentimes when I was trying to exclude, like I wanted this element here, but this other element was matching it because maybe, responsive design or something. So I would use not oftentimes to say, oh, well, this one has an attribute. So I'll just say, I want this one and not this one. So it can't have this. Does that make sense? And that would work out pretty well. Attributes, we kind of went through this. So if I wanted to select all three of those in the middle, what would I do? I could. So I could do for, Ethan. And I could do a comma, for, and so forth. Another thing you can do too is if you weren't checking the value, you just want to see if it had a for attribute, because you can just do for. And not actually have an equal sign in there. And that'll give you just that attribute. Okay, attribute selector. So this one, we want to get these two plates. So you can do plate 4, right? That'll work there because both these two plates over here have a 4. The bento box has a 4, but we don't want the bento box, we want the plate. Bento box for vitality. So this one, we would do what? Bento 4 equals vitality. You wouldn't have to. You could also just do star here. Should go at least star. Say I want, regardless of whatever it is, I just want that attribute. So this one I want the small apple and the pickle. So basically I want Sarah and Sam. Let's see here. So Sarah and Sam. One's in a pencil, one's in a plate. Oh, that's what they want me to do. Since they both start with an SA, I could do a for, where's that caret thing? Equals SA. This one I don't use a whole lot. I do use the like ones as well, though. Just like that. Doesn't like that. It is case sensitive when you're comparing strings. Okay, attribute $sign. Just checking to see if it ends with it. So this one's a pretty easy one as well. So this one would be for equals $sign equals TO. ATO? Oh. Oh, too many equal signs. I did equals. And last one, level 32. We've almost completed it. We got Robbie and Bobby.
Yeah, the OBB.
The OBB, yeah, you know me. Yes, one left today. I have succeeded, let's say, programmer. Okay, OBB. But I want to see anything that has that in it. So I would do that. Okay.
Wait, where did you put the star? Beforehand?
Yeah, you have to do it before equals. So it's 4, and then equals, and then OBB. So the only other thing to note for CSS, and I know we're over time by like 5 minutes, the only other thing to note for CSS is classes, which are a little bit different. So when you have multiple classes with spaces in between, the nice thing about this class attribute is if I did a class for, let's look through here real quick and find a class. Probably should have started earlier with this one. Let's see here. So here is a, so here's a class here with PS search label and PS icon search. If I did dot PF icon search, even though it's the second one on the list, it will still match it. PF icon search. There we go. And that's one of the advantages as well, is regardless of the position, when you're doing only with classes, regardless of the position of whether it's first class or third class or eighth class, it will still match that node. That's something that as we get into things like XPath or things like even attribute evaluation, is they fall short there, because with XPath you can say at class equals, but when you do that it has to match exactly the positioning of the class. And if your classes are dynamically generated, meaning that sometimes it's adding it to the end or sometimes it's adding it to the middle, then you're not going to have stable XPaths. But anyways, you can do a contains. The problem with contains is if you have classes where you've extended that class name, which is pretty common, then you're going to match on that contains, even though it's not quite a perfect match. And you can't match with spaces before and after because you don't know if it's going to be the first or lasting class. So
Contains this, or contains this, or an and, whatever. It's more complex.
it is. So Css Selector is a lot better when you're doing selecting by classes for sure, because it's going to actually just say, oh, is it have a class in there? And it automatically does the whole, we're just going to separate these classes by spaces, and so each class that separated space is its own entity, and so it works well that way. That's it for today. Thanks for enduring the CSS selecting class. Hopefully next week we'll be able to do some XPath, and then next week we'll start doing some exploration as to when to use those in our automation. So thank you very much, and we'll see you next week.